So now that we've seen what some of the individual parts of a super generic C++ program are, let's take a look at some of each of those components and see what they do. The very first one we want to talk about here is 2.2 in the textbook. It runs from page 31 through about 36, is the COUT object. Now, I am going to demonstrate this not here again with the text, but looking at a piece of code. As always, those pieces of code are listed in our Eagle core shell, and they are also listed so you can just, if you're using the YouTube playlist, you can also get that without having to go back in a different potential window to go get that from Eagle. So the code you can see here as well, although I don't really know how much you need to follow along with this particular piece of code first. So first and foremost, there's a couple of things to know that we have in order to get this to work. So first and foremost, in order for us to simply use the cout statement the way you see here, we do need lines 2 and 3. We do need the include for IOStream, because remember, again, that gives us access to putting things in our output window, and it also gives us access to, taking from that output stream and bringing it into our program. We'll do that later. We also do need to use namespace std, because that simply allows us to call cout, for example, by name without having to do std : cout, which gets to be a little abrasive. So first and foremost, we have our cout, and then we have that less than, and that is called the insertion operator, because what we're going to do is insert whatever we see here on the right hand side into our output window. Here, really dramatically shown, because our outputs literally follow that insertion over here to the right hand window. So I'm just going to hit run, and we're going to see what's happening here. Each one of these couts is going to be responsible for what happens here on the right hand side of that statement. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit run, and we're going to see what happens. Now, my expectation is that doesn't meet with what your expectation was. Line numbers 7 through 11 here, each of them is on a different line. Reasonably, we could expect that each one of these cout statements is going to be on its own line, but in fact, it is not. That's not the way this works. We simply make this output statement, and you can see that after, for example, at the end of line number 7, sellers, you don't see another space before during. So what we're going to do here is at the end of each one of these lines, I'm going to hit space, 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 and space. There we go. And this time when we run it, in our output, you can see that the difference between the end of the word sellers and during does have that space like we would have expected there in between the two of them. You're actually going to see this in your first few program exercises at the end of chapter 2, where, oh, I should have put this extra space, you can see right here at the end of line number 7, in my code to make it look better. And the rest of this is, I'm going to move this window just a little bit here. Let's run it again so it looks, there we go. Computer games, coffee, aspirin. That's the developer's lunchbox is coffee and aspirin. But this still didn't necessarily give us what we were looking for, which was everything, or certain things rather, on a new line. In chapter 3, we see 2 different ways to do this. The first of them, and I'll scroll down here so I can show them to you. The first of them is right here. This is on page 33, and that's with the end L. So I'll show you what that looks like. So the following items were top sellers. So before the end of this line, I'm going to put a new insertion, and then I'm going to say ENDL, just like so. If I run this, you'll see that at the end of top sellers during the month of June, there's that right there. I'm going to cut this one from right here. I don't think that looks particularly bad. I'm going to paste it right here after line number 8 with my colon right here, so it looks like it comes at the end where it's supposed to. So when I run this, we're going to see computer games, coffee, aspirin. We're getting a little bit closer, but what I'm going to do is add that end line here at the end of each one of these lines on 9, 10, and 11. And this time when I run it, computer games, coffee, and aspirin all end up on the line where maybe we would expect them to go. Another way to be able to do this is with some of what we can see here on, this is page number 35, some escape sequences. These give us the ability to, to really with granular control, format the output window the way we want it to. Now, between here in chapter 2 with table 2-2 are escape sequences, and what we'll see later on in chapter 3, we really get an opportunity to influence the way our output windows look. So here, \n, that is a new line character. So if you think about them like an old-fashioned carriage return on a typewriter, otherwise hitting enter on your keyboard. So I'm going to show you that here. I'm going to run this again. I've taken out all my end lines, and when this runs, everything is in a line now. So what I'm going to do is here inside of line number 8, I'm going to add my new line character here, new line character. On line number 10, new line character, line number 11, new line character, and when I run it, here we can see we got what we expected, that carriage return, that new line, was displayed all through there. I can put that here at the beginning of line number 7. I'll go add 4 new line characters. This time when I run it, you'll see it pushes my output down a little bit, just like so. So it's not all crowded at the top. I could add several more new line characters here at the end of line number 11. And what we would see is that nice visual spacing between the end of our last line of output, which is line number 11, and the end of our C++ program output window. I'm not sure how much value there is in that, but there you go. There are some other escape sequences you can see here in table 2-2. The one that you will use the most is the horizontal tab. It causes the cursor or your output statement to go to the next horizontal stop. So I'll come back in here and in front of computer games, in front of coffee, and in front of aspirin, I will put that tab. And what we can see in the output is we get that nice little tab spacing before our outputs for computer games, coffee, and aspirin, and we have had an influence on how everything looks in this output window. So there are some more of these. An alarm, that's annoying because it causes your computer to beep. This is going to be system dependent. I know my Mac, the one I'm recording on here, does not beep, but I do know that when I do this in the classroom, it does cause a horrible Windows system beep. The return, so that's \R, causes the cursor rather to go to the beginning of the line that you are on. So there's reasons that might be valuable. We actually won't do that necessarily through the course of our course, but you'll be able to see that. A \ character, if you want that \ character to be printed, a single quote rather character to be printed, or a double quote character to be printed. So you can't just have the double quote inside of a double quote. For example, if you want to show in your output window the quote marks. You'll actually have to use the backslash quote mark inside of a string output to be able to show that. And don't worry, you'll see that through the course of the example portion, and you'll feel it the hard way when you get to do some of the program challenges at the end of the chapter. So there we see some of the output and some of the granular control that we can have over our output by using the COUT object.